Joshua Kimmich is looking more and more likely that he will leave Bayern Munich in this summer transfer window. And there's news coming out that can actually leave Arsenal fans feeling hopeful that a deal for this world-class player can actually happen. We're also going to be speaking about a striker. News coming out in the last 24 hours that Arsenal are being heavily linked with a £100 million striker. We're going to talk about that. But before we get into it, just very quickly, do me a favour if you could. Just hit like on this video. It helps me out massively. So we're going to start with Joshua Kimmich. Look, it's coming out that if he was to leave Bayern Munich, which is looking more and more likely, he said there's only 5 clubs that he would entertain even moving to. Even if there's a possibility of him leaving, there's only 5 clubs in world football that are of a high enough caliber that this player would even consider joining. Who are those 5 clubs? You got Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, predictably, Man City, Liverpool, and the mighty Arsenal. Only 5 teams in world football, and Joshua Kimmich has named Arsenal as one of those. What are your thoughts on this? Would you like to see Joshua Kimmich at the Emirates? Would you like to see him play for Arsenal? But not just that. We know this is a versatile player. So that leaves us asking the question, where do you play Joshua Kimmich? You know, do you play him at right back, which is going to be very difficult with the recent couple of seasons that Ben White's had? Do you just shift Ben White out the way and say, listen, Ben White, we know you're a solid player, but we have a truly world-class player coming in. Do you put Kimmich there? Or do you play him as a number 6? Do you play him as a central defensive midfielder, which we know he is more than capable of doing? To be honest, the few times that I've seen it, or the few times recently that I've seen him, he probably is deployed more as a right back, and then he floats into midfield where he can impact the game. But he's just defending. He's very good at right back in terms of a defender. So that's probably the predicament that I'm looking at and saying, if you are to bring this guy in, you know, you would have to speak to the player first and find out where he feels most comfortable. If it is right back, then Mikel Arteta has a decision to make. We know Mikel Arteta is more than comfortable with being ruthless. You know, and coming in and changing Ben White for Kimmich would be absolutely ruthless. Would it be what Arsenal need to finally take them to that next level so they can go on to win the title? So they can go on to win the Champions League? I don't know, maybe. Would I want it to happen? I wouldn't want Ben White to lose his position. Would I swap Ben White for Kimmich? I don't know. Let me know in the comment section. Kimmich is world class though. It's hard to deny the qualities of Joshua Kimmich. How much is he going to cost? If you're looking at the age, that's probably what most people would be concerned of. You know, he's a 29-year-old player. For me, I wouldn't really see that as much of a concern. He's only got 1 year left on his deal. So in terms of an outlay, you're not going to have to pay a massive fee for Joshua Kimmich. And that is what can be enticing to Arsenal. Edwin Arteta might look at that and say, we can get this guy for less than 50 million euros. This is a world-class player. It would be hard to turn off that kind of opportunity. Now, maybe if there's a couple of clubs interested in him, that fee could go slightly higher. That's probably what Bayern Munich would want. If they are going to lose a player of the stature of Joshua Kimmich, they are going to want a bidding war. Like I said, in terms of an initial outlay, you're probably not going to be paying mega money in terms of a Declan Rice price tag or something like that. But I think he's going to cost you a lot in wages. Predictably, he's one of Bayern Munich's highest paid players, and rightly so, because he is one of their best players, one of their most consistent performers, and he is a world-class player. He's done this over a number of years. He has a big body of work that you can look at and pretty much understand the caliber of playing you would be bringing in. You would be bringing in a truly world-class player. So that would be something to think about as an Arsenal fan. Like I said, let me know your thoughts on that. Would you like Joshua Kimmich? And would you bring him in as a right back, or would you want to see him deployed mainly as a central midfielder? The next subject I wanted to touch on is Victor Gyökeres. Again, more links coming out. There's a certain journalist in particular that might just have a scoop. I don't know, because he seems to be the only guy reporting it. Arsenal were in advanced talks for Victor Gyökeres. The usual suspects over this side of the pond haven't really been putting it out there that Victor Gyökeres and Arsenal are close. And personally, those are the guys that I would listen to mainly. I'm not saying the guy who leaked this doesn't have credible sources or he doesn't have good information. But for me, if I'm looking for serious transfer news and to see if Arsenal are in serious discussions, you usually get a Fabrizio Romano or an Ornstein. have that information by now, especially if, like this guy is saying, Arsenal are in advanced talks. The talks are looking good. Arsenal, £100 million for Victor Gyökeres. Like I said, I think he's a great player. That's probably a lot of money to spend, but that is what you're going to have to play, because all you have to do is look at his stats last season and you will see his numbers are absolutely incredible. Some people are put off by the fact that he was in the Championship a couple of seasons ago. For me, that's not really a concern, because we've seen players like Ivan Toney, for example, who many people would be happy, or they would have been happy maybe 12 months ago with us signing a player like Ivan Toney. Ivan Toney's a player who plied his trade in League 2, League 1, the Championship, come up to the Premier League, and he's been able to produce numbers in every single one of those leagues. So if I'm looking at a Victor Gyökeres, I'm not going to mark him down solely because in his younger years, you know, in his early 20s, he was playing in the Championship. That wouldn't really concern me, because you are where you are as a player. And if your team or the moment in time that you're playing at is in the Championship, that's okay, because you can get a move to a bigger club, which is what he's done. He's moved over to Portugal, and his numbers have only carried on improving. He's gone to a better team with better players, and he's produced better numbers. So that fact that he was in the Championship, like I said, it wouldn't concern me. If he come to Arsenal, I would expect him to score a lot of goals. He just has the kind of attributes. If you're looking at his stats, I'm not going to number off every single one in this video, but he is in the top percentage of almost every single attacking stat that you would want to see, like balls carried, take-ons, shooting opportunities, shots on targets, crafting opportunities for himself, assists. So in terms of a number 9, this is a player that can do everything. He's a big, strong guy. He can hold the ball up. He's not slow exactly. He's good in the air. He's got a good finish on him. I struggle to see what the disadvantage would be if we bring in a player like Victor Gyökeres. Now, there is obviously one very clear one that's staring us in the face, and that is solely the price tag. For £100 million, you are shopping in the very, very highest of stores. You are expecting a caliber of player that can come in and hit the ground running. You don't expect there to be any question marks if your outlay for a player is £100 million. You are getting the cream of the crop. You are expecting the very best in the world. And maybe the only thing that I would slight towards Gyökeres is I'm not sure that he is that. Now, if he carries on doing this for another 2 seasons or 3 seasons, then it would be undoubted. We've seen in the past, though, players do have unbelievable seasons, and then they don't really replicate that the next season. Now, again, I'm not saying Victor Gyökeres won't do that, but I'm just saying there is a possibility that he's just had one unbelievable season, because in the Championship, he did still score over 20 goals. But his form since he moved to Portugal is absolutely sizzling. Like, this guy is scoring almost every game. Like, his game-to-goal ratio is ridiculous, among the very, very best in the world. Can he replicate that at Arsenal? I don't see why not. I don't see why he wouldn't get as many chances, because we've got a better team than them, if we're being honest. We've got more creative players, so that would make you think that he's probably going to get more opportunities. Therefore, he probably will be able to get a similar number of goals. Football doesn't always work like that. And same with the Joshua Kimmich deal. You know, do they even want to leave the club they're at? Kimmich, the news is he will leave only to them 5 clubs. But does that mean he wants to leave? Or does that mean... we don't know. And the same as Gyökeres. He probably is in a slightly different position because, you know, with all due respect, he's not at a club as the same stature as a Arsenal if he was to move to them, or even a Chelsea or someone like that. So, I don't know. These are definitely players to keep an eye out for. If I could only pick one of these players, honestly, I would probably go for Kimmich. I think he's going to be a cheaper price, in all honesty. And I think Arsenal, well, the word coming out of Arsenal anyway is that they're not looking to spend a stupid, or not stupid, but a crazy amount of money on one player. The news that we've heard all summer, news that I'm hearing from inside, is Arsenal are not looking to go out and spend that £100 million that they did on Declan Rice. So this Gyökeres deal would definitely be a bit unexpected, because a lot of us are not expecting Arsenal to make that blockbuster deal. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't do that deal if they think the right opportunity arrives. We're hearing recently that Napoli are going to lower their price tag for a Victor Osimhen. Does that make you guys maybe want to consider Victor Osimhen over a Gyökeres? I don't know. I think there's some interesting players that Arsenal can go for. I think we're going to have to be clever in this window, though. I don't think we're going to be able to spend 200 million willy-nilly. I think we're going to have to sell players to buy. No one ever likes to hear that, but I think Arsenal's strategy in this summer will be to get rid of a lot of the deadwood. There's a lot of players sitting around the Arsenal squad and that can bring in a decent amount of money. And I think before we go out there and spend a lot of it, Edu's going to be busy in trying to get them outgoings as well. So it's not just going to be all incomings, which is probably what we've seen in previous seasons. A lot more incomings than outgoings anyway, especially them big players where you're trying to achieve a 20 or 30 million pound, which is what we will be doing this summer with the likes of a Emil Smith-Rowe or Reece Nelson, Eddie Nketiah, Fabio Vieira, whoever's on the market. These are going to be, they're kind of big deals. You know, 30 million pound, it's a big discussion. There's a lot of conversation that needs to be going into producing a deal like that. So Edu's going to be very, very busy with the outgoings. I just hope he can be busy enough on them incomings as well. And that's why a player like Gyökeres for 100 million would surprise me. Let me know your thoughts on it. Would you go for Victor Gyökeres at 100 million? The last story I wanted to touch on is Bruno Guimarães. You know, Fabrizio Romano's put out there that at 12 o'clock tonight, his £100 million release clause comes to an end. So if you want to buy this player out of his release clause, you've only got until 12 p.m. tonight to make 12 a.m. tonight to make that happen. Is any club in world football realistically going to pay £100 million for Bruno Guimarães? No, I don't think they will. And no, neither should they. Because Newcastle are not going to want to sell Bruno Guimarães. The only reason they will sell him is if they have to. So if they have to sell him, any club would be silly to pay his release clause. You know, why are you going to help them out and pay £100 million for a player that they might need to sell? If Newcastle need to sell, well, then they need to have a bargain. They need to have some discussion. Clubs aren't going to pay the full asking price just to help Newcastle out. If Newcastle say we need to sell this player, they can probably expect bids in the region of 60, 70, maybe 75 million, which is probably more of a fair reflection of the price that Bruno will probably be worth. If someone's asking me how much do you think Bruno's worth as a player, I would probably say anywhere between 60 and 75 million pound. Some people might say, well, that's similar to what you paid for Havertz. And I'll say, yeah. And I think Bruno is worth a similar amount. Let me know your thoughts on it. Would you, by 12 o'clock tonight, pay the Bruno Guimarães release clause? Do you think Arsenal will? Because I certainly don't. I don't think any club will. And is Bruno a player that you would go for? Thanks so much to everyone for watching and listening. And before you go, if you could, like I said, just quickly do me the favor. Hit like on this video. Just hit a thumbs up, like it, and subscribe. And I'll speak to you all in tomorrow's video. Gooners, have a good day.